Hello, everyone. I'm just waiting for a signal from my friend Suzanne to let us know if she can see and hear us. Okay, waiting. Still waiting.
Just got a little notification on my phone there.
Thank you.
Think it's
Uh,
happening.
Yes, it has. So thank you. And Suzanne has given me the all good signal. So hi, everyone, and welcome to Banter with. I am Vinny. And for those of you who don't know me, apart from being very good at solving business problems in the product and delivery space, I host the Banter with, and through short, bite sized videos or LinkedIn Lives, like you've joined me today. This platform injects enjoyment into discussions and creates engagement by hearing our guests' real opinion on important topics. So we make it accessible to the wider audience. It's unscripted, unrehearsed, raw, and unedited. And I really hope to provide an authentic platform for candid discussions and for unfiltered dialogue. But in the last few months, I have been using my platform to solve a very real problem among us. In the past, we have heard from Paul Witz and Sanches. So if you would like to watch a replay with Banter with Paul and Sanches, you can find it on my LinkedIn under the video section or even on YouTube. And due to popular requests, we have put on this event today. So instead of having many conversations, like I know you always have, we can have one conversation where we can all come together as one for the Recruiters Roundtable for the tips and trends in the agile recruitment space. And as Paul has always said, we are in this together. But he can also tell you later our roundtable names that he has come up with for each and every one of us. So without further ado, let me introduce our guests. First one we have today is Nadine Drello, with 25 years experience in tech and media. She's the founder of an ethical AI recruitment product designed to humanize hiring. Nadine has led and scaled tech teams for major organizations like Google, Microsoft, and the UK government. She's passionate about ethical AI to democratize recruitment, promote transparency, equity, close gender and ethnicity pay gaps, and create better economic opportunities for women and marginalized groups. Welcome, Nadine.
Hey guys.
And next person we have is Paul Witz. Paul is from Life Transformation. He's an expert recruiter in the agile space with over 25 years of experience blending agency and in-house recruitment. Paul focuses on empowering those navigating the current job market. While Paul's insights may not directly help secure someone a job, Paul aims to help individuals understand the recruitment process by offering a realistic perspective for those who may be vulnerable in these challenging times. Welcome, Paul.
Hello.
And finally, we have Sanches. Now, Sanches places top agile delivery talents into leading product-focused business. Sanches, you deliver value through a deep understanding of both agile ways of working and recruitment trends. You are people-focused, you are realistic, and you're a dedicated agilist. You balance your professional life with being a father to Mia and a husband. Recently married, 11 years in sales, and out of that, 4.5 years in recruitment. Last 1.5 years as an agile practice recruitment consultant at LaFosse. Hi, Sanches.
Hello. Thanks for the intro.
No worries. And lastly, somebody who is behind the scenes helping me today and helping all of us is Suzanne Morrison, my friend and business partner. She's on standby on the tech stuff. She will be helping out if there's any moderating that needs to be done, as we are also streaming live on YouTube today. So, some ground rules. I will be facilitating the discussion with our guests. It is okay to have differences of opinions, but please do so respectfully. Please write your name with questions, because if you're not connected with me on LinkedIn, I can't see who you are on my feeds because I'm seeing something completely different. So please feel free to connect with me. We may not be able to answer all your questions, but if we don't get to your questions live, we will try to respond in the event after. So to kick off this event, Nadine, I believe that you have shared some stats on your LinkedIn and it's basically blown up. Tell us a bit more about it.
Yeah, so I didn't know where to start. I've got a lot of stats on a lot of things. I focus on mainly kind of the tech contractor market. My background is delivery and transformation, as Vinny said. So I'm really interested in kind of like the SME market and what trends are going on in the kind of contractor and SME market. So I dropped a few trends in there onto my post last night, and we've had quite a few comments on that. So it'd be great to hear in the comments, what are you guys actually interested in hearing about today? I thought let's start with the 50,000 foot view, a kind of an overall what's going on in the market at the moment. So everyone knows the market has been pretty dire since around mid 2022, end of 22, that sort of period, around September 22, it started really kind of dying a bit of a death in terms of the tech market. And so I dropped some trends in that post last night, and they were, we've had around 70% fewer contractor roles now versus pre-September 22. And that was a global survey, but mainly UK respondents. Sorry, no, that wasn't. That was a survey of 123 recruiters, mainly UK, but some European and US recruiters as well. Of those that 70% reduction of contractor roles, 70% of those on average are inside IR35 roles. So we've now got about 30% of the contracts that there were versus 2 years ago. And of that 30% that's remaining, 70% of those are inside, only 30% are outside IR35. Around 95% of candidates have been ghosted, according to a poll that I did where over 200 candidates responded. And again, that was a global poll. 72% of candidates have dropped their day rate in the last year by around 25 to 50%. 50% of candidates think it's okay to call out, i.e. name and shame, bad recruiter behavior. 24% of candidates have been out of work for 6+ months out of the last 12 months, and 44% of candidates have been out of work 2 to 6 months out of the last 12 months. Some of the stats to get us started, we've got lots of other stats on things like IR35 and all sorts. So just shout on what you think is something you really want to have a look at, a deeper dive into.
That's a lot. That is a lot.
And Sanches, you have some stats of yourself to share as well, don't you?
Oh, yeah, they're a lot more rudimentary though. I think obviously it depends on what kind of questions are coming in, Vinny, but I just wanted to put out there that there's been across Q1, Q2, looking at specifically agile roles that didn't just disappear and were actually roles that had good financial backing, that had strong processes, the needs were there, and the roles were filled, be it whether they were filled by me or not. Across Q1 and Q2, probably been probably over 40-ish jobs that came in. Of that, looking at the actual quality of those jobs, which is something that we like to do here as well. The actual sort of A grade work that has the financial backing, that is certain, that is definitely going ahead no matter what kind of thing. Like there was about 4 across Q1, Q2. That's 6 months, 10%. If we look at where we are in Q3 just gone, that has shot up to 12. So we can say, obviously, this is just me, right? I head up the agile practice. So when it comes to agile roles coming through our doors, like it's me that handles them. And I think just in that's a X3 in comparison of the previous 2 quarters in the quarter just gone. So I just want to, I suppose, give a little bit of light to say, yes, it has been really bad. There's no two ways about it. Like like 2 decent jobs across a 3-month period is not sustainable. And to be honest, from a target perspective, I'm not going to hit my kind of quota and stuff like that if I haven't got any jobs coming in, right? But it's one of those things, just to say it's been pretty much as bad as it could get, I think, over the last 16, 18 months. And we're clearly seeing an upward trend. This is also looking specifically at those kind of like A grade jobs. We want to, I don't really feel there's too much value in telling you about anything and everything that someone's reached out to us about, because it's not always that tangible and concrete. But hopefully that gives people at home that are listening a bit of an overview of how the agile market might be improving right now.
Yeah, and I just wanted to jump in on that as well. Sorry, before Paul does. It's not to give you a doom and gloom kind of look of the market. Some of these stats are a month old or 2 months old. And actually, if we look to the US market, we can see that there actually is a light at the end of the tunnel. In September, there were 240,000 extra jobs filled in the States, and the States are usually 3 to 6 months ahead of us in terms of economy and jobs and things like that. So it has been the worst market we've ever had. And I would say we're over the worst of it from what I've seen. I can definitely see there's pockets of things warming up. But what I like to do is be honest with people and pragmatic about it as well, because if we say, oh, it's brilliant, it's warming up and blah, blah, which is what some recruiters will say, then the people that aren't feeling that and aren't getting the jobs are going, what's wrong with me? Why am I not getting jobs? And then they start kind of introspecting, looking internally. Internalizing, that's the word. Looking at what am I doing wrong? And it's not that you're doing anything wrong, usually. It's that it's a terrible market, or it has been a terrible market. But it is, I am seeing a light at the end of the tunnel. So please don't think it's like really, really depressing. It's just some stats, and it's getting better.
So, Paul, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, a couple of things actually. So first of all, to bear out what a couple of you said. First of all, what Nadine has just said about this being such a bad market. I have been around quite a time, and I've worked in the recruitment industry through the slump after year 2K. I worked through 9/11, banking crisis of 2007, COVID, obviously. And this is the worst. This is absolutely the worst one of all those recessions since the mid-90s. I can't explain it. There are a number of contributory factors, but whatever, we can go into that later. But this is actually, or this has been, the worst. So that's the first thing that I'd just like to emphasize what Nadine said. What Sanches said. I don't have those sort of stats, but what I can, in my job, as some of you guys know, I do both. I do both agency and I do in-house as well. For live. What I can tell you is that I didn't make a single agency placement in the first half of this year. Not one. I've made about 7, I think, since June. So it's getting better. It really is picking up. Okay, in order to do that, I've had to go fishing into other ponds, which is slightly different, but the market is definitely picking up. There's no question about that. It died again in August, but now it's on its way back up. But it's going to take a lot.
Did we lose Paul?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Oh. We're back.
Okay. Paul, are you still with us?
I can see and hear him. I don't know if he can see and hear us now.
I don't know. So we'll come back. We'll come back to Paul. Paul, are you still there? Say something. Okay. All right. So let's just press on for now. Nadine, we have a question, and I believe that question is from Dan. Let me just let Paul in the room again. Paul, you're back. We lost you. You were on a roll.
Oh, he's frozen.
It's frozen. All right.
Yeah, connection issues.
Okay. So we have a question from Dan, Nadine. How many, based on the stats that you gave, but those percentages are for how many people polled in comparison to how many people that have been in the process?
So there's about 7 or 8 different stats I think I gave there. So some of the stats came from a survey of 123 recruitment companies. So you've got to imagine that a small percentage of those were kind of like 2-3 man bands, ranging through to 10,000 plus staff recruitment companies, so massive organizations, and they were giving me insights about their experience as an organization. So, you know, some of those recruitment companies will have 50-60,000 people in their database in terms of tech candidates. So it's a good representation. Some of those other stats that I've put in there, they're polls of sort of 2, 3, 4, 500 people. It really depends, and it's they tend to be global polls, so mainly people from the UK, US, Europe, Australia will respond to those polls, but it's largely UK based.
Okay. Paul, are you back with us? I'm checking on Paul again.
Still struggling, I think.
He's still struggling. All right. So I'll just read something something that Ian Walker has said. So Ian Walker said, it seems that it's the worst downturn than post 9/11 2008 crash. Why are we not hearing more about it in the news? Or is it more tech specific? What do you think, Sanches?
That's a good question, man. I think I find it wild that no one is talking about it really, because I couldn't tell you why, because everyone knows it, everyone feels it, everyone's been talking about the cost of living crisis. I think the the kind of hiring boom of COVID and everyone working remotely probably set a very unrealistic expectation of how things should be in the job market. And I feel like that compounded with what is a really bad recession has made it even worse, if that makes sense. Like I remember, obviously I only really started in recruitment during COVID, like literally during COVID, and I remember like even little things like in terms of how people get to the office and having to worry about face-to-face meetings and stuff like that. Like it was almost like a thing of the past when I started, and even like meeting clients. Like I don't even think I met a client until like a year into my career, because I was like, do you actually do that? But I think because of the kind of unnatural adaptation to what COVID was, it just set that bar so ridiculously high. And once the need and the once the kind of once this environment changed, once this scenario changed, once COVID wasn't necessarily the biggest thing to worry about, businesses started to shift their focus back to like being in the office more and stuff like that. And then you've got the other sort of issues with IR35, which is a massive contributor to all of these issues. But I think all of these different factors have just culminated in what has undoubtedly been the worst market. And I think if you ask anyone that's been out of work during this period, or anyone that has tried recruiting in this period, as an agency recruiter, as an in-house recruiter, they will all tell you that it's the worst that it's ever been. So
It is worse.
Oh no.
Sanchez frozen as well. It's just you and me, Nadine. So I guess the next question is from Liam. Liam wants to know, is it just my perception, but not including the IR35 devastating impact, have rates for all roles decreased as well?
Yeah, definitely. And I post about it quite a bit. I have a lot of people message me every week, showing me insane rates, I think the lowest I saw was like a project manager role for £110 inside IR35, which once you take all the deductions, if an employer, pseudo employer, passes over the NI contributions for the employer, which happens a lot with with inside contracts. You're not just paying the employee NIC, you're paying 13.8% of that rate in employer NIC as well. Oh, have I frozen now?
No, you're good.
Oh, okay. So by the time you've done that and you've paid your apprenticeship levy, which often the employers will pass on to you as well, you're not even making minimum wage with that. So I see that a lot, and I post a lot about Hayes, one of the culprits for posting really, really low rates. But
I am really not sure what's going on.
It's you know what? It's not liking having multiple people on, is it?
I'm just
I'm
not
just glad
going to say
it's
anything.
not just me.
Nah, it's not just you, Paul. I think I lost it for a sec there as well.
Everyone seems to be losing it. Yes, Sanches,
So
you're going to say something.
I think I was just leaving off. I think before it cut out, I was just talking about IR35, how expectations have changed a bit, and that's kind of compounded all of those factors and made it worse. But why people aren't talking about it or haven't been talking about it, I couldn't even tell you why. Outside, you know what? Specifically within the agile space, since is that's what we're talking about, right? I feel like people have been more focused on the fact that agile hasn't agile the whole agile is dead thing, or agile roles are being are less prevalent, or people aren't invested in agile anymore, and all of that. And I think within the agile space, that's why no one knows that it's just the worst market ever, especially within the tech market. um if you actually took off the agile lens for a sec and you zoomed out and you realized, oh, hold on, like there's actually 400,000 redundancies that were made last year. There's like hundreds of thousands that have been made this year, and it's not just agile. It's not just contractors either. But obviously, when I've said this many a time to clients and candidates alike, like when you are unsure on what when you have any kind of economic uncertainty or financial uncertainty, the things that will be looked at are those that don't show a direct return on investment. So a lot of the time that will be agile, I guess, because it's very hard to quantify what it is people like yourself do. And even when you do quantify it, it's usually a longer return on investment that you're looking at. It's not instantaneous. Change takes time. And on top of that, if you don't have the cultural mindset and financial backing, you do need that to make good long lasting change and have that return on investment. If you don't have those freedoms, then you're not going to get that. You're not going to be able to get that return on investment that you're looking for. And yeah, if there's financial uncertainty, that's not going to be a priority for a business. You don't unfortunately need agile. You don't need to be product led. You don't need to have agile coaches in the business just to keep the lights on. But that's not what agile is about, right? It's about how do we kick on, how do we improve, how do we continuously have that feedback loop. And I think what we're starting to see now is that where businesses have had their slow and steady period for the last 10 months, some even longer than that, they're now thinking, all right, we've got through this year, we've got through the worst market ever. Now let's turn our eye to the North Star and how we're going to focus on improving again.
Yeah, because Sanchez, for me, if a business is not doing well, that's when you actually need that mindset, that agility. What are we going to do next? This is not working. How can we make things better? And on the point that you mentioned, we're seeing tech as not great. We're seeing the agile space being great. And I've often asked myself that question as well. But then I realized that most of my sphere, people that I communicate in my community are agile people as well. So when I have discussions with those who work outside the industry, I can see that they're also being impacted. It's just that we see it a lot more closely because we are in this sphere. So Jamie actually has a really interesting comment, and it says, annoyingly, one of the big stats that Microsoft is touting recently is that the industry will need 3 to 4 million new developers over the next few years, which flies in the face of what seems to be happening in the job market. Then again, their stats is UK specific, and I'm in US specific, and I'm in the UK. So thank you, Jamie, for sharing that with us. And Ian Walker has also then said, about the 2008 crash, which we've recently discussed as well. Paul, I realize that you're back with us.
Yes.
Are you? Yes. Would you
I
like
am.
to continue what you were saying?
No, I kind of finished. I don't know how much people got before I cut out. What I was saying was that this was very much the worst recession. But my business has picked up Q3, whereas Q1, Q2 was non-existent. What I would like to do is just go back to, if I may, the IR35 question. So I'm going to make myself here about as popular as rabies in a guide dog home. The recruitment, I remember contract recruitment before IR35. Okay, and I was working in the electronics contract recruitment, and you basically had a situation where contractors were 100% de facto employees. They were with the same company for a long time, and they were not. There was no project basis. It was just like, they were treated as an employee, and they were on something like anything between 60 to 100% on top of what their permanent salary would have been. On top of that, they were paying themselves a pittance in salary, so they didn't have to pay any national insurance, and the rest they paid in dividends. Tax. No right things against tax. Now that was the situation, and it was an unsustainable situation because at the end of the day, governments need revenue. They need tax income. And people earning double what their permanent equivalents were earning, a little tax on top of that. That's not, you can't tell me that's right. So that's what IR35 was actually brought in. The problem with it has always been, and it's always in its implementation, not in to achieve. And the worst thing that happened was in 2020 when the emphasis or the onus was put on the end user hiring companies and taken away from the contractors to decide whether a contract was inside or outside IR35. That was the issue. And the way that I see it is that 2 years ago, the same contracts with the same organizations were outside IR35, they're now inside IR35. And the only reason for that is that companies were never that risk of whether they got it right. They were never happy accepting that risk, but they had to. It's the pressure on talent because you guys at very higher rates than you are on now. Excuse me, and you were working pretty much as many weeks in the year as you wanted to work. So they couldn't do it then. They couldn't jeopardize their war to get talent by all of a sudden making those contracts inside IR35. What's happened, obviously, is that there are now an amazing, huge, really disastrous number of people on the market. So now they've decided they don't actually have to carry that risk. They don't have to accept the risk of getting this wrong, which they never wanted to in the first place. So that's why there are so many contracts that are appearing outside IR35 that 2 years ago were inside IR35. Nothing else has changed. There's been no change in legislation. There's been a change in government, if you could notice it. Nothing else has changed. The only thing that's changed is the market. That's going to change back. At some time in the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months, that market will change back. And you guys will, once again, your salaries are going to be up, your rates are going to be up to what they were. You'll be working as many weeks as you want. And those contracts that are now inside our IR35 will all of a sudden, once again, magically appear outside IR35. It's the market. It's nothing else. Rant over.
Agree with that. agree with that. And I think we're probably seeing that more as well, in terms of businesses understanding that to get the best talent, you need to do your assessment properly and actually like market on its merit for what it is and for what job is actually being done. And then by doing that, you can it's a cost saving exercise that we're doing with loads of our clients at the minute. In that, if you offer this rate, if you offer this contract role and it's an outside role, you can save yourself anywhere from 50 to 150 pound a day, just for the fact that you don't have to pay as much out. So yeah, I completely agree with Paul there.
Can we actually
I'm gonna say I love these guys, but I totally disagree.
go ahead?
And from someone that hires both internally for clients, from a candidate perspective, and having seen what I've been offered both inside and outside, there is very little difference. People say, oh, you're offered 20-30% more as an inside role. Rubbish, sorry. And I don't mean this to these guys. I mean, I've seen this on my posts as well, people saying, oh, what's the problem with IR35? If you don't understand what the problem with IR35 is, you don't understand IR35 and you weren't a business owner in the first place. If you understand the difference, you are an SME, you don't want to be an employee, and you certainly don't want to be a pseudo employee with zero rights, paying more tax than a permanent person does. It's absolutely, it's a disgrace. I don't think the market will ever return to the kind of 2014, 2019 kind of height, and certainly not the post-pandemic time. I think that if you give a large corporate the opportunity to avoid paying, to improve their bottom line costs and avoid paying their responsibilities like national insurance, which they can pass off to a contractor, they instantly save nearly 14% off their bottom line. Okay, so they pass on the employer's national insurance to the contractor. They pass on things like the apprenticeship levy. I was offered a contract a while back, £900 a day. I was told that I would need to pay £600 a week in employers' NIC. That is absolutely disgraceful. I don't get any pension. I don't get sickness. They can get rid of me on the day. I don't get maternity leave. I don't get anything. And I'm not running a business. I'm being taxed at source. And I am one of those SMEs that I don't pay myself via dividends. And I absolutely disagree with what Paul said about most people pay themselves through dividends. I've never paid myself a penny in dividends. I've had my own businesses for 17 years. I always pay myself a salary if I can afford it. But what I do first is I reinvest into my business. I've had up to 12 contractors through my small consultancy and up to 5 perm staff. And since the changes in 2020, where they've passed it on to large employers, large corporates, or the end client, that's the main difference, is that those large corporates, are risk averse. So rather than putting any effort into creating a scope of work, they'll just go blanket bans, and that's supposed to be illegal or not allowed. No one cares, and who's going to check up on it? HMRC? No, ain't going to happen. So they're doing blanket bans. They've mass hired after COVID, and they're now mass firing. Meta, 10,000 employees they've got rid of. Amazon, 15,000. Microsoft, 8,000. Mass hiring and firing at will. They don't seem to give a crap, to be honest. And what are they going to do? They've been offered this inside thing where they get to control people as if they were employees, but they don't have to pay any of the benefits, no maternity, no pension, no employer's national insurance. Of course they're going to do that. And people should be worried. If they're perm, they should be worried about their jobs, because if you can be got rid of like this, kind of willy-nilly hiring and firing, and you will be replaced by either offshore staff or people that have zero rights and don't cost those large corporates anything, they're going to do that. They will get rid of you. They don't have to pay redundancy or any of that sort of stuff. And that's the trend that's going to happen. There's something on offshoring as well. Like, people ask, why are we in the situation we are? Obviously, global economic downturn, impacts of Brexit, domestic policies, etc. IR35 is a big impact. Offshoring is a huge one as well. A lot of these large corporates, they're moving their revenues out of this country. and the governments, both the Labour government and the Conservative government, are not supporting SMEs. SMEs provide 61% of employment in this country, yet we're giving tax incentives and letting companies like Amazon bring in 37 billion in revenue in 2 years and pay zero tax. Now, my companies have to pay 25% corporate tax. I pay 5 types of taxes. So when someone says, oh, all these permalancers didn't pay any taxes, I'm sorry, that is the minority. I know a lot of people. I've got 25,000 people in my network. A lot of those are contractors. I know that most of us want to pay taxes. Well, we don't love paying taxes, but we
Oh, we do pay our taxes.
we do
Yeah.
pay our taxes. I pay employees NIC, I pay PAYE, I pay corporation tax. I don't pay dividend tax because I don't take dividends. I pay employers' national insurance. I never pass that on to my staff. I pay all of those taxes, and then I'm told that I've been trying to evade taxes. And I'm not saying Paul's saying this, but this is a misnomer that really gets my back.
I think I kind of need to reconfirm what I was trying to say. I was talking about the situation in the mid-90s, right? Not recently at any present company. I can 100% promise you that the majority of contractors I used to deal with in the mid-90s, that is exactly what they did. They paid themselves less than a level where they had to pay any national insurance at all, and the rest was in dividends because they could do that. And that is the situation that IR35 was designed to address. Now, the fact that it's crap, I think is absolutely beyond question, and the fact that the implementation has been clumsy beyond belief, and nobody's listened to anybody who's been affected it, I totally agree with. But the only thing I was trying to describe was a situation before IR35 ever came in, and that wasn't a sustainable situation in my book.
Absolutely. So I was actually speaking to my accountant recently, and my accountant said that his business has gone down by anywhere from 50 to 70% because he specializes in the contractor market. So he's down as well. So what we're actually not seeing is the impact and the roll on and how this is passing on to small businesses, because I fundamentally believe that our country, and I need to check which country because I am a citizen of a few countries, our country, the UK, is built on small businesses. Yeah, but what is greater that we're not seeing is when you do this to contractors IR35, you are actually killing innovation. You are killing that motivation. This is how new things start. It is that entrepreneurship. It is that innovation. It's giving people the freedom to do what they want. But I'm going to bring you back to agile and the so-called transformation. And those that know me, I don't like the word. I prefer growth and evolution. It sets a better expectation on what we are here to do. Yeah, language is really important. When you're actually going through a change phase, you can't just have permanent employees. You need to have different people, different employment, what do you call it, Nadine? Different employment types. Yeah, that's a better way to do it. Because if you have everybody from the same company, same people, where's the new blood coming in? Where's the diversity that's coming in, right? That's how change happens. And that was what someone told me years ago. You put different people with different perspectives at different layers in a company, and then you see the change. And finally, what I would like to say is, when people are being made redundant, perm people are being made redundant. I see this in the US as well, especially when they have a visa and they have X amount of days to find another employer, because if not, they'll have to go back home. And this is the reason why you do not move for a job. For those of you who have families and who need those family support, you move, you uproot, and then you're out of work. And I knew this something happened to somebody. 3 months they'd moved in America, across state, in a U-Haul. In 3 months, they were made redundant. So
yeah, I think that whole redundancy piece as well is just it's weird because obviously, like, traditionally there being a contractor had a lot of benefits in that the financial gate. You almost the trade was more more financial gain for more risk, right? More risk, more reward. And I feel like the benefits of being a contractor are just getting removed and just stripped away. So it's where is that innovation going to come from? Like if everyone is part of the machine, as we know, like agile coaching positions or any kind of transformative or change focused role, it's very hard to be the change when you're part of the system that needs to change. So I think I think the other thing I was saying as well, Nadine, just around the IR35 piece is I think businesses are becoming more aware of the fact that they can. I'm not 100% aware of exactly what the cost saving can be, right? But just in terms of I've got £1,000 inside IR35 contract versus a £800 outside IR35 contract, you can probably attract the same level of talent with those two figures, but one is going to obviously save the client £200 a day. Just looking at what's going out, I appreciate for employers' tax and stuff like that, there's going to be things that they're also losing out on, but like I feel like that is an area that businesses are becoming more aware of. The really big large scale enterprise blue chip companies, Amazon's, Microsoft's, all of that, they're not going to give a crap about that really, because it everyone's just a number anyway. But where the real innovation comes from is in the smaller businesses and the kind of like mid-sized businesses that haven't got to that level. And I think there's just a lot more awareness around this. Hopefully something can change on IR35 front anyway, but I also think that clients are becoming a lot more educated on that piece. And I think as a result of that, we will see more outside contracts. But obviously, how long is a piece of string? You can't say how or when or how much, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sanches.
I'd
Go
say
ahead, Nadine.
the majority of the clients that I work with are large corporates, right? So you're talking 50 to 150,000 staff globally. Most of those will have a directive from their legal department, blanket inside IR35.
Seen it many a time.
You'll get, the other thing that to mention as well is totally agree with what Paul said in terms of some people will try to evade taxes. And those are those perma-lancer types, right? They're the ones that just do one contract for the same company. That's a piss take. They should be going perm, right? You can't have the best of both worlds. And that's what's ended up why we're in this situation. I know someone that contracted at the same company for 17 years. And I'm like, you're taking the piss, right? You either need to go perm or you need to move around, because that's you're taking the mick there. What the government could do to avoid those situations is either get rid of dividends or tax them at the same rate as either PAYE or CGT. It's
Yeah,
a
fairs.
really
I don't think we should get into politics though, right?
Yeah.
that is not my expertise. I'm not gonna lie.
I try not to get into politics, but politics is our reality. And the thing is, it's a simple change. It doesn't have to be as complicated as they've made it. And the problem is it does kill innovation. It makes me feel as a contractor. Previously, I felt like the world was my oyster. Now I feel like this is futile. Everything's set up for large corporates. And I'm not a conspiracist, but it does feel like everything's set up for large corporates. You know, it encourages offshoring. Why would any government, and I'm not going to go too political, but why would any government encourage money to go offshore? You want it to stay in the economy, circulate in the economy. You're talking about £32 billion black holes and blah, blah, blah. Tax offshoring, 20% on offshoring. Watch all that money flood back into our economy. Watch all the employment rates increase. There's some really simple solutions, and it's like I get so frustrated by it. But anyway,
I understand. I really wish we would, Parliament would at least be, watching our broadcast, and we could broadcast to them. But I see that even myself, in the UK, in the IR35, I have the option to also live in Europe. So, my money is definitely going outside, because it's not only the contractor, the salaries being, even perm salaries I'm seeing is absolutely ridiculous. Someone posted something on LinkedIn today, 35 or 40K for a Scrum Master role. That's not what it should be. So the UK is
Yeah.
it's not livable, and things are increasing in price, right? Rent's going up, things are going up, and then you're going to hear my Amazon.
Prepare bin.
Oh gosh.
This is a reminder. Prepare bin.
All right, so that's Amazon. So I'm going to read something from Fortune, because Fortune has been a fan of the show. The UK tech market seems driven by interest rate, the long-time refusal to invest, and an uptick in nearshoring. In my very honest opinion, what do the speakers have to say about this? And I'm going to read the next question as well, because we do have quite a few questions, and we have 15 minutes to go. This question is from Ani Roth. Isn't the market settling at pre-COVID level? I was wondering, Paul, if you would like to take those questions.
Yeah, the market settling pre-COVID level? No, not yet. Nowhere close. And the problem is there is so much slack in the market that any upturn is going to take, well, my guesstimate is 6 months to work through to any real discernible differences to things like rates, agency turnovers, and those sort of things. Oh. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Can you still hear me? Good. Okay, fine. Good. And in regards to the other thing about interest rates, something else, another advantage of being really old is that I lived through a lot of ups and downs with interest rates, and I can promise you the country survives and functions much better on low interest rates than it does on high interest rates. So as far as I'm concerned, the lower the interest rates, the less money is going to be stored in banks, and the more money that's going to go going to be invested in development projects. So yeah, lower the interest rates are better for me, and I'm really glad they're coming down.
Okay. So we have another question as well. Joanna, will the new workers' bill tackle IR35? Surely it's a conflict. Either you're outside or you go to FTC perm.
What was the question?
Will the new workers' bill tackle IR35? Surely it's a conflict.
I have no idea about it, to be completely honest. But I feel like we probably don't want to focus too much on the IR35 stuff. Like as a recruiter, as an in-house recruiter, as an SME, we're not going to change what legislation is out there. So I'm not sure how much value we can add by talking about what could happen in the government in the government sphere. I think the main thing we can control and we can update our audience on is how we're feeling the market shift. And I think from mine and Paul's perspective, we both felt that looking at H1 in comparison to H2 so far, there's been a huge uplift. Is it back to 2022 or pre-2022? Absolutely not. Pre-COVID, sorry, absolutely not. But we're on the right track, and I think the the things that can and should be addressed is how clients are tackling their hiring, how clients are approaching their hiring strategies, because I feel like there's a huge hole in terms of the the there's just a huge disparity, sorry, between a really tight, good process, responsive, loads of feedback, and then there's the other side. I'm definitely done the wrong way on the scales, but and then the other side of it is you hear no feedback. You even after interviews you hear nothing. Budgets are pulled on roles after doing 5, 6, 7 interview stages. Like these are the practices that can be controlled, and I think it's very easy to sit there and say it's IR35's fault, but I think we should focus on the client side, and not just. I think someone said, Nadine, your stat was saying that 50% of people are happy to call out bad recruitment process from recruiters, right? Like we should be willing to do that for clients, the client side as well. Like businesses should be called out for having bad hiring processes. Businesses should be called out for having a roll on and then all of a sudden it disappears. I get it. that can happen. It's happened to me personally. Like sometimes something's there and then it can be gone. There's so many reasons and so many steps involved to get from there's a live role to someone's actually in that job. But I think there's so much in between that can be looked at and that can be that people, myself, Nadine, Paul, anyone listening can actually hold businesses accountable for when it comes to their hiring processes. Yeah, that's just what I want to say there quickly. I don't know if that sparks any more questions or if you guys want to follow on from that.
To answer, I can't remember whose question it was. It's not going to deal with IR35. They've already said they're not going to touch IR35. I think it's all just being brushed under the carpet. So yeah, zero rights worker, not zero rights workers. That's us. 0 hours contracts. That I know that they were talking about ending those, but it's not going to have any impact on inside IR35 roles. In terms of what we've got control over, I think basically hiring managers on the client side are in a tricky predicament, right? Because rates are dropping all over the place, not just day rates, but it's all about supply and demand, right? So there's more people available. What does that do? That means that rates drop. It means that people are they're giving up because they've been out of work for so long on contracting. So they're going, I'll go perm. So that then means there's an excess supply on the perm front, which means that rates start to drop. Clients also know that they can get away with bundling extra work on top of existing employees. So quite often a role will come up and then it will vanish because, oh, it's okay, we've got someone internally to cover it. Because if you say to your existing staff, oh, it's a tough market out there, we've got this extra work, we can't afford to get extra contractors in, we're going to have to put this on your plate, what are they going to do? Say no?
Well, they're going to be coerced to say yes, because what choice do you have, right?
And so I
100%.
think and I've seen this having been client side and having vacancies in my last contract. I looked after about 100. I had about 100 people working in my teams. I had 17 vacancies, and some of those roles just disappeared, even though we desperately needed them. And I was told, okay, well, you need a T-shaped delivery manager, but can we just take this project manager from over here and put them into that role? And it's like, well, no, because they don't have remotely the right skills for that. And that's one of the key problems, is that a lot of middle management don't understand the nuances in the roles. There is a huge difference between a project manager and a delivery manager, or a scrum master and a delivery manager, or a transformation director and a program director.
Yes.
But most middle management don't understand that, and they're just like, oh, that looks like the kind of right shape. Let's stick that in there and let's can that role.
Yeah.
Agree.
So we
think
sorry, is that you, Paul?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think, and sorry to interrupt, what we kind of touched on there is something that from going on from our previous session that we did together 3 weeks ago, whatever it was. There's something that's often missed out in regards to people who suffer in the current market, and actually a lot of people who are actually currently in work are also suffering really badly, because they're working under situations that under normal circumstances they would not tolerate. They're being bullied, they're being worked into the ground, they're being underpaid, everything that we know is going on. This is also, people out of work were thinking, well, at least you got a job, you're not wanting to get pay your mortgage. But the temptation and the whole thing about I've got to tolerate this, I've got to put up with being bullied, and sometimes sexually bullied, and the whole thing, I've got to put up with this because otherwise my kids don't eat. Because if I go on the employment market, I'm screwed.
I know.
So this is the other side of it. This is really the other side of it that actually gets forgotten about, I think. When we're talking about people's mental health, it's also affecting mental health of people in work. So just wanted to make that point as well.
Yeah, I think it will be interesting to see how the past year impacts people next year as well, in terms of that kind of pressure cooker that is building, with teams not being able to get any supplementary support for 6, 9, 12 months. Like, it is going to lead to burnout. It is going to lead to people having to stop. I've spoken to a few this year already that are just constantly asking for help, not getting it, but you need to stay in your role because you know that there's not enough out there to justify moving elsewhere. You're not in a position where you could interview at 3 other opportunities whilst you're working double the amount of hours because you've not got enough staff. So it's a very tricky situation to get out of, and obviously you'd rather have you would say that you'd rather have money to kind of pay mortgages, put food on the table, everything like that. But equally the cost of having those luxuries can be quite massive as well. So yeah, it's a really good point that's been brought up there.
So I guess last question for today, because we're going to wrap up in 5 minutes or so, and it's from Atul. What do you think are the main reasons for the current uplift, Paul and Sanches? What's changed with client behaviors or needs? Do you think it's the behaviors or needs, or do you think it's something else? Paul, why don't you go first?
Age before beauty. Okay, so I think what's leading to the uplift is that companies. Let's look at one of the reasons. Well, I believe for the recession, I think was actually AI, and a lot of companies who are big hirers didn't want to put money into development projects because they were scared that if they'd have waited 6 months, then AI would have enabled them to do it at half the cost, something like that. These projects, they've got to be carried out because otherwise they're not going to get a competitive advantage over the competition. So at some stage, that development had to be done, and I think what we're looking at now is that the market or some major players in the market have reached the stage where they've just said we just got to do it. We've literally just got to do it, and so that's why there's been this first signs of movement. And I think it's starting to snowball a little bit, domino effect. One company's doing it, the competition look around and say, well, they're spending some money, so we should probably spend money. But yeah, that's basically what I put it down to.
Yeah, it's a domino effect, isn't it? The more a competitor moves, the more the other business will move, and the more movement we have within the job market, as in one person leaving a role to go to another, it will leave a gap that has to be filled. Like businesses are already at capacity, so they can't get new headcount, or not every business, but there might not be new headcount or new budget. But if someone leaves, there's always going to be a opportunity to fill that vacancy, that headcount, that budget again, because it's been accounted for already. So I think as we move into Q4, we're seeing a lot more just financial confidence in businesses anyway. Interest rates are going down. I think I've looked at 6 different main huge retail businesses over the lot that have reported positive inclines in their revenue and profit for H1, and that will in turn give people the confidence and the budget once those are decided to enhance, to build their teams and not just run slim and kind of slim and steady as a lot of businesses have. So yeah, I think those are some of the core reasons there.
Thank you. And Nadine, do you have any last words?
I was just going to say on that point as well, is that one of the things I noticed in terms of trends was that there were a lot of delivery people out of work. There are a lot less hands-off roles in demand. So the move seems to have been away from agile coaches and those kind of coaches that come in with profound opinions but don't really do a lot, say a lot, and then leave. What I'm seeing a lot of need and demand for is executional people that can deliver as well. They can't just coach, they can empower, they can make things happen, they can help deliver things, and that they can take on whole programs of work as well. So I'm seeing that trend. I'm also seeing that there seems to be more engineers and developers in work than comparatively speaking than delivery people. I've seen a lot less unemployment in the kind of BA spaces. So what that says to me is that things are being prospectively looked at to be built, because you're getting BAs and POs. I'm seeing more POs and PMs, as in product managers, not project managers. start to get work as well. And that's a good sign for me as well, because that says to me projects and programs and products are starting to be thought about to be built. That will then start to then trickle through to designers, developers, content people, delivery as well. So
100%.
I'm seeing that in terms of a warm up and stuff.
Thank you. And just to wrap up, Paul always has this really nice way of putting his message through, and it's always around mental health, because we want to acknowledge that what we're all going through out there is difficult. Paul.
Yeah. So there are a number of people on this discussion who I know your names, and I know that you're looking for work and have been looking for work for a time. This is affecting everybody's mental health, as I keep on saying. Talk to people. Always talk to people. Don't try and bottle it up. Don't try and present the best version of yourself. If you're feeling that today's not your best day, then that's absolutely fine. Just make sure that you talk to people, and please, any of us here, I know Sanches, Nadine, Vinny, myself, if you want to talk, if you want anything, if you want to know anything, if you want us to look at your CVs, anything that we can help, we'd be more than happy to do that.
100%.
Can I just say as well, and it may sound twee and annoying to say this, but we're all still here. We're 100% successful in getting through tough times. Our job isn't us, and it's very hard to extricate your job from your identity. And I know that because I was out of work for a prolonged period after having an accident. So I know that it can really hit your confidence. It's awful when you think, I can't pay my rent, I can't pay my mortgage, what am I going to do, blah, 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 and to catastrophize. It will get better. It is warming up. And, as long as you're still breathing, there is hope. So please, reach out if you are struggling, like Paul said.
Okay.
Yeah, don't lose hope at all.
Thank you. So thank you very much for joining us today, and a big thank you to Paul, Sanches, and Nadine, and especially Suzanne Morrison, who's been helping us behind the scenes, and she's been moderating and popping all the questions into a Google Doc. Thank you so much, Suzanne. So let us know if you've enjoyed this session today. If you would like to drop me a message, as I know some of you have in the past, if you've gotten value and you looked at your CV maybe differently, or you've looked at the hiring process differently, after hearing our guests today, please let us know, because we also want to share your success stories by putting on these events. So please follow and connect with me just to know what's happening next. Share any takeaways, because you never know, by just that simple act of sharing, you may have helped someone else. Thank you very much, and have a lovely evening. Goodbye.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Paul, you forgot your wave.
Thanks,